And then I'm going to share the screen. Okay, but I'm going to share the screen to see the, where is it? Is it here? Oh, there it is. Perfect. Okay, good. Okay, so we're doing solar returns today, and so I'm just going to show you. I mean, I only know how to do it if you actually have already have an account at astro.com. But if you don't already know how to do it, here's me. I click on my name. I'm in my own Astro data. I click on the name of it, and then I go to extended chart selection. So I think even if you go to free horoscopes and click on whatever it is, natal chart ascendant or extended chart selection, you click that extended chart selection. And then when we get there, that's when you go to chart type. And you would go down here to solar return chart. You can see that. And then you're going to need to change the default place. So you see how so this says reset or modify data reference plates. So you're going to use, I definitely do prescribe to to using where you are for the solar return. So you're going to use that. So that's how you would change the place for your solar return. So under chart type, you're going to go to solar return, and then under default settings, you're going to change the reference place to wherever you were at the time of your most recent solar return. And then under additional objects, you should click on part of fortune to make sure it's in the chart. Okay, and then from there, you want to go to imgur.com. And you want to upload your chart to here. Okay, so you'll upload your chart to imgur and then share that link with me, and we'll look at your chart later in the class. All right, so that's the first thing, how to get the solar return generally. Okay, so welcome to Profections and Solar Return, and so I felt kind of ready to kind of teach this, or not ready to teach, but I felt more open to teaching it after having done 2 solar returns. I did a solar return for Natalie, who's been coming to the Sundays, and then I did a solar return for Anna, who has also been coming to the Sundays. And for both of them, I used this book, this translation of Benjamin Dykes called On the Revolutions, on Solar Revolutions. That's what it's called, On Solar Revolutions by Abu Mashar. And it's very detailed, but there's also a very detailed introduction by Benjamin Dykes, where he basically kind of summarizes everything in it. So for those of you who may have more difficulty kind of getting into the language of the older texts, Ben Dykes kind of gives a little exegesis of not everything in the book, but of the main techniques of what's going down. And then you can go into the book and get kind of the particular examples, etc. So there are a few things that, so this is, he calls this a suite of techniques that are connected to the solar return, many of which don't have anything to do or which are not confined to the year. Okay, so the solar return is confined to the year, whereas some of these other techniques, the profection and the solar return, are confined to the year. But these other techniques that we're going to also look at, and not in an extremely detailed way, they are not necessarily specific to the year, but they need to also be taken into account. So the first thing that we take into account is something called the Ptolemaic ages of man. And so Ptolemy, so there's all of this, I don't want to say controversy, but there's all of this kind of quandary around the position of Ptolemy as far as astrology is concerned. As far as astronomy is concerned, Ptolemy, he wrote the first really important book about astronomy, and he was kind of a general intellectual, and he created like a compendium of different techniques and different ideas and different equations, mathematical, etc. And so that's what Tetrabiblos, or his famous book on astrology, is. It's really kind of a compendium of things that he knows about astrology, but Ptolemy was not an astrologer. And so there tends to be quite a bit missing. But then when there are things that are right, there are things that are right. And this is definitely something that I think is worth looking at and using. So the Ptolemaic ages of man basically do the reverse Chaldean order, right? So we know what the Chaldean order is, slowest to fastest. He goes fastest to slowest, and he basically gives a certain amount of time or a certain age of life, or era of life to that planet. So because the moon is all about kind of creating, transmitting the forces from the heavens to the earth and kind of creating effects out of nothing or out of whatever. I think that's why he gave the moon the first 4 years. Also, the moon represents the autonomic responses of part of our brain. So it represents when we lose our first tooth. It represents when we go from using the breast to teething. So all of those kinds of things are represented by the moon. And so those first 4 years, which kind of lead to the first words, to baby first being able to talk, to baby being relatively ambulatory and able to do most things, and ready to go to school. That's the moon period, 0 to 4. Birth to 4, rather. Mercury has the main school, the grade school or grammar school years. It has from 4 to 14. And so when you think about, when we talked about the soul and we talked about the difference between the moon mind and the Mercury mind, we talked about kind of how the baby, or even when we talked about vegetative versus sensate versus intellective, we talked about how dependent the baby is on the parents, when it's first born, how all it does is cry when it's hungry, cry when it's wet, cry, it can't really do very much. And then as it gets older, it's able to do more and more things until baby is walking. And then all of a sudden baby says dada. And so that's going from the vegetative to the sensate. And then baby touches something hot and realizes that it hurts. So that's baby going from vegetative to sensitive, baby saying dada, baby making sentences, baby being able to read a comic strip by looking at the pictures and tell you what's happening. That's when the intellective mind happens. So that's the same thing with what's going on with this moon and this Mercury thing, is with this Mercury as 4 to 14, right? So that makes perfect sense. So that takes us up into adolescence. Venus has the next 8 years from 14 to 22. And of course, I don't have any guys here, but we all know that that's a major time period of hard-ons, like being 14, 13, 14. That's when you have hard-ons all the time. That's when you're basically a walking hard-on. Your hormones are raging hormones. Women, obviously, you understand it as getting your period for the first time. Obviously, whatever kind of sexual awakening goes with your hormones as well. But as a man, I obviously know kind of how it works for me. But yeah, so the sexual awakening, the desire to mate, our first kind of being in touch with sexual desire, our first boyfriends and girlfriends are often in between this period, 14 to 22, right? And as a matter of fact, what you tend to see on Reddit quite a bit is people who are in this latter part between 18 and 22 or 19 and 22 who are saying, well, I've never been in a relationship before, what's wrong with me, right? So everybody kind of feels, so that's kind of part of the pressure of it, is this age of 14 to 22 where we awaken to the other. The sun then taking over after that, the next 19 years where we establish ourselves and try to climb the ladder to success. And of course, the sun represents rank and fame and all that kind of thing, and prominence. Mars, I liked what they said about the Mars period from 41 to 56. That's the period where we fight to keep what's ours, or we fight to get more. That's where we're fighting for our kingdom, so to speak. And then the Jupiter period. Now, this is an interesting thing because this Jupiter period, that's the time period in India when most men specifically, but most people, but most specifically men, will start renouncing. And they'll have had their children, they'll have done their work, they'll have done all the other things that are important, and then they will decide that's their time period to turn to God. So that kind of makes sense with this kind of Jupiterian thing. And then Saturn obviously representing the end of life. Now, as you can see what it says, the first step is to determine the native's age according to the Ptolemaic ages of man, and to analyze the planet ruling that age both natally and by transit. So that's something that you're going to want to do. I've definitely found for the 2 readings that I did work with that it was coming. And then also when I looked back in my own life and I thought about my Venus period and how my Venus is delineated, and I thought about my Sun period and how my Sun period is delineated. And so that's what you're going to look at, right? You're going to look at the local determination. So if you're between 18 and 22, which probably some of you may be, I think maybe Layla is, you're going to be, if you're between 18 and 22, you're going to, oh, I've got maybe more than one of you there. Oh, 31. Never mind. Okay, so never mind, we're all over that. So then we're all mostly in our sun, well, I'm over that myself, actually. I'm about to go to my Jupiter period. But so most of you will probably be in your sun period. So what you want to do is you want to look at how your sun is delineated. So you want to look at the local determination of the sun, right? So that's the sign it's in, it's essential dignity by sign. Okay, just started the Mars period, okay? Essential dignity by sign. It's accidental dignity, essential dignity, or dignity by house placement. And then you also want to look at what house it rules. And then you want to look at what aspects are being made to it. And that will give you an idea of how that period is going to be generally for that amount of time. Now, the other thing that you want to do is you want to look at that planet in the solar return. Right? So if, for instance, Maria just said she's going into her Mars period. So from now on, for the next, 10 years, 15 years, for the next 15 years, you're going to always want to look at Mars as well in your solar return, because he's representing the age of man that you're in right now. So I know Lily is in Sun, Layla, the 2 Laylas are in Sun. Probably I'm going to be in Jupiter next year. But this is, I find this very interesting. The other thing he's obviously saying too is look at the transits. So for instance, Maria and I, who have these superior planets or these slower planets, there are fewer transits to them. So those transits will also affect what's going to happen. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So once again, you want to look at how the planet is situated by its local determination. You want to look at what's going on with it in the solar return every year. Now, we're just talking about the Ptolemaic ages of man, right? And then you also want to look at for the amount of time. So let's say you're in the sun period. So for that 19 years, you're going to want to look at transits to the sun to see how you might be affected. And as I was saying with Maria, Mars, for that 15 years from 41 to 56, you want to be looking at important transits to your natal Mars, right? And then also you want to be looking, so what is it I said? So we want to look at the natal planet, the natal local determination. We want to look at, what did I say? Oh, it's so nickel, we got all that. We want to look at its position in the solar return. And we want to look at transits to the planet. For the natal, use whole sign. Hey, good question. I use both, to be honest. Now, here's the thing. Remember last week when we did, I think almost all of you were with me last week when we did when we did parts or Arabic parts or Egyptian lots. Remember what happened? Diana gave us her chart, and it was a whole sign chart, and we couldn't use it. So I say start with the quadrant chart and use the whole sign chart. Use both. But for this, because for solar return, it's quadrants only. So there is no whole sign solar return. It's a quadrant chart. So you should be using alcohol. I don't know if that might be actually the question you were asking. Sorry about that. But I think that probably was for the natal use whole signs. Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, so it was for natal you were asking. Yeah, for natal, for natal use both, for the solar return only quadrant. All right, for the natal use both, for the solar return only quadrant. And remember, actually Leila Kabiri might not have been with us last week when we did Arabic parts. And what did we do? What we found out, we needed the actual cusps of the houses so that we could find the part of substance, so that we could find the part of travel, right? Because some of those parts involved moving planets to cusps of houses. And so we want to use both. We want to use both for the natal, only quadrants for the solar return. Fantastic question. All right, so that's the first thing we look at is these Ptolemaic ages of man. The second thing that we look at is the perfected ascendant and its lord. And so I guess this is the place to kind of go into what perfections are, etc. And so perfections are advancements, and I guess I'll use my Leontine, I'm going to use Luciano Pavarotti we're going to look at today. Okay, now here's a question. Here's a place where your question is really, really quite important, Layla, which is, do I use a whole sign chart or do I use a natal chart? And so perfections, kind of like the Arabic parts, which we realized were actually Egyptian lots, which went back to before the 1st century AD, so does perfection. It's a Hellenistic technique, and so that means that they were using whole sign. So at that particular point, what they would do is now remember this is an advancing technique, and so what they would do is they would choose a point like this ascendant, and then every year they would advance that point, and that would give you an idea of what was going to happen per year. So because the natal chart is primary in all things. So one of the things that I noticed the most on Reddit is that two things I noticed. One is that everybody thinks that you can read every other kind of astrology the same way you read modern natal. Right, so people think, oh, here's an electional chart. Can I work around the things that are bad? And it's like, no, you can't because it's not modern natal. Or here's a horary. Does that Jupiter Uranus matter? It's like, no, it doesn't matter because its horary is not the same. And then, so that's one of the main things I tend to see is that people think that everything applies to everything. But what ended up happening was the other thing I see is that people do things that they're not ready to learn. Okay, so that's the other thing I see. People do things that they're not really ready to learn. So what would happen is they would advance every year, right? So it would be Leo for 1 year, then the next year it would be Virgo, which means it would be ruled by Mercury. The next year it would be Venus, which means it would be ruled by Libra, which means it would be ruled by Venus, etc. And so each time that you moved it, you would be creating a new ruler of the year. Okay, so for instance, the Lord of the Ascendant is really the ruler of the year of 1935 for Luciano Pavarotti. It also happens to be the ruler of his ascendant and the chart ruler for his entire life. But it also, if we were to just look at this as a solar return chart or a chart with whatever, we could say that the Lord of this year, 1935, is the sun because Leo is rising. Okay. However, if we wanted to move it, then 1936 would be Virgo and Mercury would be the Lord ruler. And 1937 would be Libra, and Venus would be the ruler, and so on and so on and so on. So how would it end up working? It would end up working so that the ascendant would represent from birth to 1. It would represent from birth to 1, from 12 to 13, from 24 to 36, from 36 to 38. 48 rather, from 48 to 60. Get what I'm doing? Every 12. It would basically it would bring us back to the division of 12 every time. 0, 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, etc. Right? And then every year after that, every cusp after that would be a year. Now, here's what I wanted to say about what you were asking. Since this was a Hellenistic practice, they used whole sign, and that meant that it was very easy for you to just go, Leo, then Virgo, then blah, blah, blah. But of course, when we get to the Arabic period, which is what we're working with, the Arabics got really into this. They created the quadrant system, and they got really into this quadrant system and into the mathematical aspects. And so we're going to do what the Arabics did, which is we're going to, no matter what your chart looks like. So Lily, for instance, don't you have a chart that has maybe 1 or 2 signs in one house or something like that? Or if you're from far north and you've got 1 or 2 different signs in one house, or you've got like a really elongated 12th or 11th house or something like that, you're going to do what they did, which was you're going to perfect at 30 degrees always. You're going to, so if this says 22 degrees Leo, you're going to go to 22 degrees Virgo for the next one. Even if you have a chart where there's an intercepted planet and there's a house, there's an intercepted house and there's a planet, there's an intercepted house and there's another sign. So let's say Virgo were intercepted here and Libra were here, you would still go 22 Leo, 22 Virgo, 22 Libra, 22 Scorpio, etc., etc. Okay, so I know that question was going to be up there, whole sign or whatever, 30-degree increments. We move at 30-degree increments no matter what the chart looks like. That helps me because I was wondering about that myself. Okay, 30-degree increments no matter what the chart looks like. It keeps, because no matter what the chart looks like, the ball keeps moving forward, right? It keeps moving, and it keeps moving in order, right? In sequence. It doesn't skip and repeat, right? So that's one of the things I was wondering, because I have, for instance, I've got Capricorn intercepted in the first house, and the second house is Aquarius. Does that mean I would go Sagittarius and Aquarius? No, I would go Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. So that's what we would do. So what does this mean? So perfection, we're advancing, and mind you, we're advancing the entire chart. So advancing the ascendant tells us who the Lord of the year is, which is kind of the general significator for you for the year. But if I wanted to know about how my marriage is, then I'm going to want to perfect the 7th house, right? The entire chart moves, right? So that means, let's say I'm 30, let's say that Luciano Pavarotti is 36. As a matter of fact, we're going to use a solar return for him when he turns 36. Let's say he's 36 years old. That means, oh shit, okay, well, let's say he's 37 years old. That means that now the ascendant, because remember this would be 0, 24, 36, 48, 60, etc. That means that now, at the age of 37, we would move for the ascendant, we would move to Virgo. So right now, for the year, Virgo is the ascendant, the profected ascendant. That's the terminology you would use. The profected ascendant is now Virgo. Okay? And let's say you want to know, how is his marriage going to be when he's 37? Well, he's 36 when the cusp comes to Aquarius. He's 37 when the cusp comes to when we profect the 7th house to Pisces. So we would look to Jupiter as the ruler of the year for marriage, or as the ruler of marriage for the year. So the ruler of life for the year would be Mercury, because the profected ascendant is Virgo, but the ruler of marriage for the year is Jupiter, because the profected seventh house has become Pisces, and Jupiter is the ruler. Okay, so the radical rulers, the people who would be the usual rulers, are the Sun and Saturn, right? Because the Sun rules the ascendant, Saturn rules the seventh house. But for this year, the rulers are Mercury and Jupiter. Now, what next? What do we do next when we have the perfection? Well, the next thing we would do is we would look to see where Mercury is, and we would look to see where Jupiter is, right? Because if we're talking about what's going on with this person's marriage when they're 37. Now, what I did actually want to do, what we're looking really at is we're going to look at the solar return for his 36th year, but since we're looking at 37, we're going to get kind of an idea. So we can get an idea of what's going to happen to him based on what's going on with this Mercury in the natal chart. Okay, because remember, the natal chart is primary and has the primary signification. Everything that's kind of promised in the life comes from the natal chart. It's activated through transits and through the solar return. And that's really important. One of the things that I read, and I had always kind of thought about this or thought that it made sense. And of course, from Jyotish, it makes a lot of sense. But one of the things that he said was that not all configurations in a chart are active at the same time. And that's also another big thing that's kind of a problem for me with modern astrology. Modern astrology acts as though every single thing is happening at the same time, and it isn't always, right? It is, some things come into more focus at different times. And so what he says is that, or what Abu Mashar says is that when let's say you've got a Venus in Virgo retrograde squaring Mars, opposing Saturn, ruling the 10th house, and you're about to turn 20, you're about to graduate from college, and she rules that 10th house, and she of course also rules marriage and whatever. That means that, and let's say you come to a perfected year. You come to the other house that Venus rules for the perfected year. That means that all of that stuff that is Venus is going to come up at that time. That means that her position in fall, her retrogradation, her square to Mars, her opposition to Saturn, all of that stuff is going to be reflected in the year. So that's why I'm saying you obviously want to look at the local determination of the planet in the natal chart that represents the year to give an idea of the year. So that's the first thing that you're going to do with the perfected chart. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to look to see who is the planet, what condition is the planet in the solar return chart. Would somebody just put into the chat for me that they can see this solar return? It should have the sun way up at the top with the part of fortune and the Mercury. Thank you. Okay, so now this is the wrong solar return for what we're looking at, but we're just going to pretend it isn't. Okay, so he's 37, so we're looking for Mercury in this chart. There's Mercury. And look at where he is. He's up here. He's in the 10th sign, even though he's not necessarily in the 10th house. But look, he's exactly on the part of fortune. And he's also with the sun. It's a solar return. He's with the sun. So that part we don't like so much, right? Because the sun is combusting him. But that also means that the sun is adding his signification of fame and that kind of thing to Mercury and putting that onto the part of fortune with him. So we've got a little bit of a different idea. We've got two different ideas. So if we hold on 1 second here, we go here, we look at this one. We look at this one in the natal chart. We've got him at 0. He's retrograde. He's in the 3rd house. And whatever, I guess that could be okay. He's trining the Saturn, right? So he's trining the 7th house. So, there's kind of a trine to the Saturn. So I would kind of expect that maybe there would be something that would go on with relationships and marriage. kind of was what I would be thinking. Maybe it rules the second house, so this is maybe something around money, is what I would be thinking. It's in Scorpio, so yeah, I mean, it could be letting go of money, or secretive about money, or not letting people know. It's with Saturn, so there could be a hoarding away of it, or a miserliness around it. Saturn is the ruler of the seventh, so we've got the Lord of the year trining the ruler of the seventh. They're both in fertile signs. There could maybe be affairs this year, maybe, or something like that, or because I know he was married by this time, right? So, but we never know. Also, look that Jupiter is the ruler of Jupiter is with the ruler of the fifth. Jupiter is with the Mercury in the same sign and ruler of the Saturn. So this could definitely be kind of a year of hanky panky, smanky wanky, right? And look, and there's Venus, and look, Mercury's in a Venus sign. And there's Venus. So indeed, there could be hanky panky, spanky wanky in this particular year. And look, the moon's in the seventh. So that's how you would go about kind of looking at it. Now, like I said, this isn't the right one that we're looking for. We're looking for we'd be looking for another year, which is given us different. But if we were looking for those significators in it, then that's what we would get. If we were looking for the Jupiter in this year, right, because Jupiter would be ruling the seventh. Once again, look at that, the Jupiter. Even though there's no connection between the Mercury and the Jupiter in this chart, the Jupiter in the 11th house. So the opportunity, friends, opportunity, expansive, on a silver platter, right? So, so that's the kind of way that that we would look at the profection when it comes to. So you're looking for the profected ascendant and its lord, and the lord is called the Salkudai, or Salkudai. All right, so that is kind of the beginning of looking at profections. So now the next thing, here's where you want to go into the chat and click onto that link. Because the next thing, this is something I had never worked on before I started doing this. The next thing is, so I think almost everybody here has been with me long enough that we've been introduced. Oh, sure. Someone asked me to resend the link. Hold on a second. I'm gonna do it right now. Okay, so I've just resent the link. And it should bring you to this traditional astrology chart calculator. And you want to click on directions, distribution through the bounds. And that will take you to here. And then you're going to put in your information. And I've already done this one for Luciano Pavarotti, so that should be him. Yes. Okay, now let me get the actual, so we can kind of explain what's going on. So if you remember a while ago, I told you that there was interesting usages for the ruler of the triplicity rulers, and we talked about how they represent the 28 years of life and all of that stuff. And then I also mentioned that there were interesting usages for the term rulers, the term or bound rulers, and how that basically, okay, so let's give you, once again, kind of get you situated into what I'm talking about. These are the five unequal areas that are ruled by different planets. And what happens is that these get the degree of longitude at which the planet is gets, what's the word I'm looking for? It gets, not translated, but gets converted into right ascension, into ascensional time, and then that ascensional time is converted into regular time and is given an amount of time. So for instance, so basically, let's say that I was born, my ascendant is 27 degrees of Sagittarius. My ascendant is 27 degrees of Sagittarius, which puts it in the last bound of Sagittarius, which makes Mars the ruler. That makes Mars what's called the distributor at the time that I'm born. And so my ascendant is at like 26 degrees and 12 minutes of Sagittarius. That would get converted into ascensional times, which would then be converted into an amount of time, like a 1 point something years. Like this type of ascensional times represents this many years, and then that particular time would be. Oh God, I'm sorry if I'm not being clear enough about this, but that particular time, because the thing is, this is hard for me to kind of figure out math-wise, but we don't need to do the math because we've got the computer, although I want to figure out how to do the math because I want to be able to do this with other things besides the ascendant. The computer or the website will do your ascendant. So that part is great. However, what I'm trying to explain to you is that by this conversion, we come to a certain amount of time, an allotment of time for every planet as we change terms. So it's not like, so for instance, you see this is 0 to 12. It's not like 12 years for Jupiter, 12 to 17 is 5. It's not like 5 years for Venus. It's less even than that because of the ascensional time. So now going back to that, I hope I haven't confused anybody too much, but going back to that, then you can see what I mean here. Yeah. Okay. So 2231 Leo is Mercury. Okay, 2231 Leo is the bound of Mercury or the term of Mercury. There is 1 degree and 28 minutes left in that bound because that bound or term started at, what is it, Leo? It started at 18 degrees, right? It started at 18 and it ends at 24. And he's at 2231. Okay, so the amount of degrees that is left, that's what's actually converted into ascensional times, and this is how many years it represents. So when Luciano Pavarotti was born, the time period of his bound lord was 1.96 years. And so that took him from October 12th, 35 to September 25th, 1937. So you should be looking at that now for what's the bound lord for where we are right now in our life. And so we're going to be looking at the solar return for 1971 for Luciano Pavarotti, which makes Mars the distributor. So I'd like for everybody to go ahead, put their information in, and then tell me who the current distributor is, and then this would be a good place to ask any questions if you also have them. Okay, so someone said Saturn and an UG, Jupiter. Oh, Saturn's also the chart ruler. What about you, Lily and Maria? Are you having any problem finding? Okay, let's see. Jupiter for Lily. Okay, so okay, Maria, you can, if you want, you can put yourself off. You can take yourself off mute if you want to, or I'll just instruct you. Have you put your information into the website?
Yes, I have. I just I'm scrolling down and I'm trying to find this section. So
okay, so it should say directions of the ascendant. Can you see that?
Yes, I see it now.
And let's look at the very last thing says date, or the very last column says date. And so
Gotcha.
you're going to, you got it? Okay, so you're going to come down to wherever is 2021 and find out where we are now and find out the planet that represents.
So it would be like from the previous one, because I have 2015 and 2024, it just jumps. So I guess I'm between those.
Yeah, it would be whatever the 2015 one is. So,
Oh, the 2015 one? Okay, so
right,
Mercury,
you said it goes from 2015 to 2024, correct?
yes.
Yeah, then that would be the one. Mhm.
Okay, so the previous one, Mercury.
Yeah. Okay. So if look, oh, good. I'm glad we're doing this because it's important to kind of make sure that we have it kind of together. All right. So as you can see from the very beginning, it starts from his birthday, and it gives it's Mercury. Okay, and then from 1935 to 37 is the Mercury period. From 45 to 54. Yeah, is the Mercury period. From 37 to 45 is Mars. From 45 to 54 is Mercury. From 54 to 68 is Venus. Get it? And so that's how you'll know. It looks like you figured it out, Maria. But I just wanted to make sure because also Layla wrote in that she maybe put the wrong one in. All right, so are you feeling more comfortable? Everybody feeling comfortable about that? So keep that in mind because when you get your solar return, then you're going to want to look, you're going to be looking at that. So now here's the next thing about that. So we're looking at 1971 for him, and we know that 21 degrees to 28 degrees Virgo is the term of Mars. Okay, right? We're looking for Mars, but we're also looking to see if there may be a partner. 21 to 28 Virgo, that's the wrong chart. 21 to 28 Virgo. We're also looking to see if there is a planet that either is in that term or a planet that is aspecting that term, right? So 21 to 28 Virgo. So anything that would be Scorpio, oh, there we go, Jupiter at 24. Anything else? That's it. Okay. Now here's the thing. For the entire time, well, wait, not the entire time. For like half of that time or part of that time, Jupiter is going to be also involved, is going to be what they call a partner. So there's the dispositor, who's what we were just looking at, but then whatever planet is aspecting that bound or term, or is in that bound or term, that planet is a partner. So let me once again say what I'm talking about. We're looking at between 21 and 28 Virgo, right? Because that's where the term or bound has been distributed to. Mars rules that term. But if there is any planet that is either in 21 to 28 Virgo or aspecting, right? And aspecting would mean Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn. Is the moon opposed to the bound then? No, because the bound is 21 Virgo. The moon's at 15 Aries. Right? So so remember, it's imaginary bounds. It's not, let me go back. So it's not imaginary, but it's distributed bounds as opposed to real bounds. Because what are we distributing? We're distributing the ascendant. We're distributing the bounds of the ascendant. So we're not looking for Mars. We're not looking for Mars for anything aspecting Mars. We're looking for anything aspecting the bounds that have been that the planet has been, that the ascendant has been distributed from. So it's been distributed from Mercury's bound to Mars's bound and left Leo, and then gone into Mercury's bound, and then Venus is bound, and then Jupiter's bound, and now it's in Mars's bound. And that's where we look to find the partner. So only 21 to 28 Virgo is what we're looking for. So this person's partner This person's partner during that time period is Jupiter. So Mars, Jupiter, Mars is the distributor, Jupiter is the partner. Now, I can imagine that that's creating a little bit of confusion. And if you have anything up on IMGUR, if you have your chart up on IMGUR and you want me to look at it, and you know who your thing is already, then or you know already who your dispositor is or distributor is, we can figure out if you have a partner. Okay, so take give yourself a second to put your stuff up there, and we'll look at that. Okay. And we'll come back to that when your actual natal charts are up, and then we'll also. So you're going to give me two. You're going to give me two IMGUR links. You're going to give me one link that has your, unless you can put the solar return at that same link. But you're going to give me one link that's your natal chart, and you're going to give me one link that's your solar return chart. And I don't want charts that are together. So try not to give me bi-wheels, like, something where there's the inside is my chart and the outside is my solar return. I don't want that. Okay, so we just talked about the distributor. How do you include, is the Arabic parts you were talking about, day for parts for tuning? Wait. Yes, I mean, I'm not sure if I understand the question. Leila, there's only a few of us here. You just go ahead and ask. Verbally.
I was just wondering, because you said to make sure to include the part of fortune in the solar return chart. What do I do to add that in astro.com? Like, what is it called?
Thank you. Good, thank you. Okay, excellent. Let's go back to astro.com for a second. Do I still have it up? Yeah. Okay. Can you see astro.com?
Yeah, I'm on it right now. I couldn't find, I looked for lot and then fortune, and then I couldn't find it really. I didn't know what it was called that I'm looking for.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. You see where it says extended chart selection here?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Do you see where it says down here additional objects?
Got it. Okay, found it.
And now I know. Fortune is right underneath there. So no, I understand that can be difficult to find. So there, yeah, sure. So that's good. That's good that we're reiterating that, because for those of you who need to kind of know where to find it, because you are going to want it. All right. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so the next is, so look at that. The solar return, the solar revolution or solar return, known especially where the calculated ascendant of the year falls in the nativity, what its lord is, the plans transiting in it. One also knows the prominence of the lots in the revolutionary chart, which you were just talking about, according to both their natal and annual. Alcabitius, please. But I really don't care. But Alcabitius is what I use. So if you can, please do. So let's see. Let's break this thing down. The solar revolution, noting especially. So the fourth thing is the solar revolution itself, right? So the first thing was the age of man. Right? So the ages of man were the first thing to look at. The second thing was the perfected ascendant and its lord, which we've just looked at. The third thing was the distributor and its partner. So that's the last thing that we just looked at. And then the fourth thing is the solar return itself, noting especially where the calculated ascendant of the year falls in the nativity, what its lord is, and planets transiting in it. Okay, so noting especially where the calculated ascendant of the year. What's the ascendant of the year? The ascendant of the year is the solar return ascendant. Where it falls in the nativity, where it falls in the actual natal chart, what its lord is, and the planets transiting in it. Now, you should also do that with the ascendant of the year as far as the perfected year, right? Which is what we just said earlier. So one of the things that he talks about, let's come here for a second. One of the things he talks about is that, let's say we were perfecting to this. So for instance, let's say we're perfecting the 37. And at 37, that takes us here to the second house. And so that's the second house from the ascendant, right? Now, if then if then the solar return were in Libra, that would also say that second house issues were involved. Now, that's something that I had never seen before. The thing that they talked about was if it's Leo and it perfects to Sagittarius, and then the ascendant of the solar return were Aries, it would say fifth house stuff is going to be accentuated. Yeah, I bet y'all are confused about that. Oh, thanks. Oh, good. Y'all didn't. Good. I thought someone was like, what? What the hell? But so basically they're saying if the same relationship or if the same amount of houses, the same relationship of houses happens between the profected ascendant and the natal ascendant, and the perfected ascendant and the solar return ascendant, then that doubly puts the emphasis and onus on that. Okay, Layla, which one is did you say which one is your dispositor or your distributor? Did you say it was Mercury? Okay. Mars. Oh, it's Mars. Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it's Mars, but I the second link is a screenshot from AstroSeek in case you wanted to verify if I did that.
Yes, I do. Yes, that's a very, very good thing to do. Excellent.
So I think because I'm 31, I'm still in the Mars period, I think, but I may have been misreading this.
Excellent. Let's look at it. Fantastic. Okay. Are you 2018 to 2023? Yes, you are in the Mars period. Fantastic.
Yeah, better than Saturn. Or I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it depends what's going on, right? Oh, well, maybe with this Saturn. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Okay, so I need what you just showed me because it will. Oh, you know what? So Layla did a really smart thing, in my opinion. She also gave me the link or the list of hold on a second, I'll show it all to you in a second here. There we go. Okay, so she showed me the list, which then tells us exactly which bound she's in. So she's in the bound of Mars, which is from 19 Pisces to 28 Pisces. Okay, 19 Pisces to 28 Pisces. So that's what we're going to look for when we look at her chart. We're going to look to see if anything is aspecting 19 to 28 Pisces. So here's Pisces.
Oh.
Yeah, it's totally different than you think. That's why I'm saying.
It's better looking, so I'm not upset about it. But you guys don't take outer planets, right? This is traditional.
No.
Like Neptune doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
so I don't see anything. Yeah.
Yeah, well, but also, you're right. Let's wait. 19. Damn, no, there isn't anything. So there is no partner. Okay, so so that's neither good nor bad. You have no partner. Now, here's the thing. You might have a partner just for the solar return. Mm-hmm. And so, do you see what I'm saying? So when we get to the solar return, you're going to look for any planet that aspects 19 to 28 Virgo.
Wait, this is my solar return. This isn't my natal chart.
Oh,
shoot,
okay.
Sorry. I'll post that. I thought.
Okay, so there is nothing in the solar return. It's fine. No, it's seriously fine, because you know what? All of this stuff is really kind of complicated and strange, There's nothing in the solar return that makes a partner out of it. But what we can do is we can look to see what's going on with Mars, the distributor. Actually, so we don't know what the perfected ruler of the year is yet, but we do know the distributor. So the distributor is Mars. There he is in Taurus. And is he aspecting anything? He's squaring Saturn. How lovely. So, but he's also squaring Jupiter, which is much better. So he's leaving, as a matter of fact, he's leaving the square of Saturn and going to the square of Jupiter. So that's leaving hard times, going to some good times So that's kind of what you may find is the beginning of the year, the first 6 months of the year start out kind of difficult, and the next 6 months start out get not so bad. So, but that's how you would do it. That's basically what you would be looking for. This is the dispositor for the year, or the distributor for the year, and you would also obviously be looking for the partner, but she doesn't have one, and so this is what's going on with the distributor for the year, this applying square to Jupiter. All right, let's move on here. Okay, we got Lily Aqua. Here's Lily. Okay, let's see. What did you give me, Lily? She gave me. Oh, okay. You gave me the. Okay, so So remember. Okay, now here's the thing. If you just give me the solar return, then what I'm going to need from you is I'm going to need you to figure out who your perfected ruler of the year is, right? But if you've got the natal chart, if you give me the natal chart, then we can all do it together. But since this is the solar return, Lily, who's the distributor for the year? We can at least look at that. Did you say Jupiter was the distributor? I think you did. Yeah, Jupiter. Okay. Yeah, Jupiter. Okay. So we don't know what it's, because remember, the solar return is an extension of the natal chart. That's okay. So that's one of the other things I tend to notice about Reddit is that people post up their solar returns, and you know what? I used to do solar returns every year for my best friends. That was my birthday present, and I would read people's solar returns for their birthdays, and I did great. Just with it on its own, using kind of my piecemeal kind of traditional techniques, and I did fine with that. But I would never do it like that now that I know all the other shit that goes into it, or all the other stuff that's involved. And so it's important, and especially now that I really understand the extent to which the solar return basically shows you whether or not what's promised in the natal chart is going to happen or not, right? Good or bad. So that means that's why we kind of need both. So that's why I was saying, when you send me the IMGUR link, you want to send me the natal chart so that we can find these things in the natal, and then you want to send me the solar return so that we can find the things in the solar. Okay, so the Jupiter here, the sextile, the separating sextile to the moon is the only thing. I mean, the Venus is applying to it by opposition. Okay, so that's the only thing. Now, I don't tend to like to use these, out of sign aspects, but when they're really quite close, kind of like this one, 048, well, it's not that close. It's almost 3 degrees. So but it is going to be the very next thing she does. Well, yeah, it is going to be the very next thing she does. And look, and he's retrograding out of Pisces into Aquarius. So they're going to come very close to each other actually quite soon. So it's this Venus-Jupiter opposition. So that might mean excess in some area, and also in the 10th house. So that means there could be quite a bit going on at work. There might be an excess of some sort. Work, it's, like I usually say with Venus, Jupiter, it's too much of a good thing. It's something we enjoy. It's something we like, but it ends up getting out of control. It ends up getting the better of us, getting out of control. So watch for that in the work life. Also watch for that with your mother this year, right? Because the 10th house is mother. And so it could also be that. Okay, who else gave me? Layla probably did. Akavish's natal. Okay, Layla, good. Okay, so now we can find out. The perfected year. She's turning 31. Yeah, she's turning 30. She turned 31 this year. So we know that this is 24 for the ascendant. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. So Virgo is the actual profected ascendant for the year, bringing us to the 8th house of the natal chart. Okay. Now, looking at Mercury, so then the first thing we'd want to do is look at Mercury and their position. Now, generally, I don't use outer planets, but when it looks like this, we kind of can't pretend that they're not there, right? So this Mercury is besieged between these two, between Uranus and Neptune, and right. So we've got some stuff. So so the mental process is going through some stuff. Let's put it that way. The ability to communicate is going through some stuff. The ability between what I think and how I put it into words is going through some stuff. The kinds of things I think about are going through some things and are different from the way other people think. So all of that kind of stuff would be happening. So this year will highlight that. Right? This year will highlight all the kind of tension and overdrive that she experiences mentally, right? Because I'm sure she does, yes? And all of that kind of, and the ability to fantasize and daydream and the other stuff that the Neptune, or to delude oneself, because that can certainly happen with this Neptune there.
And it does.
Okay, and then the Mercury opposing the Jupiter too. So it's always the big picture versus the details, and sometimes that one runs out. Sometimes the big picture runs out. Sometimes my delusion runs out. Sometimes the details went out. So it's a mixed bag, which is Mercury, right? It's a mixed bag.
Sorry, can I ask you kind of a dumb question? I cast it in whole signs and equal, and it really does change some stuff, like in terms of house placement. Like it puts the Mercury into the 12th house and my sun into the first. Does that does it matter, or should we compare solar? Okay.
It matters. Now, here's the thing. It matters. Now, first of all, you shouldn't be using equal, in my opinion.
Okay. That makes my chart look like a dog. But okay, here you go.
Equal is not. I like equal for Profections. That's fine. But as far as the solar return, you should be using either Alcabitius or Regiomontanus or Placidus, or you should be using a regular quadrant system for that. Also, for as far as whole signs are concerned, like I said, I really like to kind of base everything fundamentally on the quadrant chart and then use the whole sign chart, and also to mix them. So that means that if indeed you've got a Mercury in the 12th house in the whole sign and in the 11th house in the regular in the quadrant, it will have both. It will take on significations of both. So it's almost never, you see all of this, which one is better, or which one is smarter, or which one makes more sense, and it's like, or which one do you what does it resonate with? But it really is both. If it's indicating both, then why is the question. And so that's really the important thing, in my opinion. Okay, let me move on here. Okay, now here's the next thing. Is then we've already got her. Okay, good. So we've already got her. Dispositor or distributor, so we don't need to do that. All right, excellent, and we can move on. All right. Oh, Lily, so why do I keep doing that? I'm sorry. Lily, at some point you should I know I've got it somewhere, but you should still send me your natal chart so I can do your thing. Okay, Layla. Akbar Layla. Layla Kabiri, have you come to my before? Your name, you've been here.
No, I messaged you a few times, but I haven't been able to come just because I usually work. And actually, I'm gonna have to leave a bit early to get to work. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I remember remember your name, but I don't recall seeing you on the things. Excellent. Well, welcome. So glad to see you. All right, now this should be Layla. Oh, Layla Akbar, I need to know what year you were born so I know how to.
Hey, Garth, I posted 3 links. One is my natal chart, the other is my solar return, and then the other is the screenshot. I've posted 3 links.
Oh, you did? Okay, hold on a second then. All right. Damn it. I keep the wrong thing. All right. You did click 3 links. Okay. What's that one? Okay.
Yeah, this is the solar return.
That's the solar return, okay, and oops.
Oh, cool.
Oops. Sorry. Okay. So one of them have your, okay, but I still need I just need your date of, I just need your year of birth for the first one.
It's 1992.
92, okay. So that means you're going to be 30 next year, correct?
Yeah.
You'll be 30, you'll be 29 this year. Okay,
Yeah.
so to find her perfection for the year, 24, 25, 26. What month are you born? You're born in December?
January.
Oh, January. Oh, okay. So you just turned 29. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
A
Good.
few months
Good.
ago. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. 24, 25, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Also the Virgo. That's so funny.
Both Laylas are Virgo.
Is
Only
everybody
my Jupiter
gonna be
is
a Virgo?
only my Jupiter is not even trying.
That's hilarious. Okay. Okay. So hey, good. So here we've actually got a planet in it, right? So that's something interesting, important is we actually have a planet in the thank you, Lily. We actually have a planet in the thing, so we know that Jupiter is also, and we've got this Jupiter retrograde in here too. So we know that there's issues of some kind around expansion that will be focused on this particular year. Now we also know that it's a sixth house profection, making us wonder: is there going to be any issue with health this year? So that would be one of the first things that I would think about. Is that, okay, it's a sixth house perfection. Now, we saw an eighth house perfection with the last one, but I didn't say, is there going to be a problem with death? But I would still think, we need to look at the physical significators for the year to make sure everything's right. So that would be one of the things that I would think when I saw that, we perfected to the sixth house, and look, there's a planet in it. Is it going to create an issue? I want to know right now, do you have a problem with your hips or thighs, or do you have a problem with your digestive area?
No, nothing as of yet. But one thing did happen this year, that I get back to college. I got back to college after a long time. That is one thing that happened this year.
Ninth house. Okay, good. All right. So it's not showing the sixth house, it's showing the ninth instead. And
Yeah,
sure
this
enough,
is weird. This is really weird. Yeah.
All right, so that's a perfect example. And look also how the Mercury is with the moon. So remember, moon is Fortuna. It's going to make things happen quickly. Now, this is the other thing. Did you go back to college because of some kind of inheritance by any chance? Did you come into
No,
Okay,
not because of that. Yeah.
because the eighth house is involved. That's why, because see, Mars is ruler of the eighth, and the eighth is inheritances, and so that's
It's funny because I don't know if traditional astrology does that, but as far as I know, the eighth house is also related to other people's money, right? And I'm studying finance.
There we go. So all of it together. Perfect. So, all right. So see, so one of the things that I noticed when I did the readings, nobody is here that I did the readings for, but one of the things that I noticed was that they were already starting to experience it before, like about a month before the solar return, it starts to kind of show up. And so it should definitely, if you're reading it correctly, it should be like what we're experiencing right now with Layla. It should be kind of that straightforward. Okay, so
this is my natal, and the other is this is my solar return.
Okay, so so who did you say was the distributor?
Jupiter.
Okay, so Jupiter's. Oh, and look, and there's that trine between Mercury and Jupiter, even though it's a square between Mercury and Jupiter. And of course, Jupiter is also the ruler of the ninth house in this chart. So there's the connection between the distributor and the perfected ruler. And then there's the trine between the sun and Jupiter. And the sun also loves the ninth house, loves all of that stuff that has to do with astrology and higher learning and all of that stuff. So that's all in there too. So let's see what's going on with Mercury and what's going on with the sun, with Jupiter. So Jupiter's in the 10th. Mercury's right on the cusp of the 10th. Jupiter still rules the 9th. So we've still got an Aries rising chart. Look at now this time that we've got Mars on the ascendant. So before we had Mercury, we had the moon, we had Mars all together in Sagittarius. Now we've got Mars right here on the cusp of and remember, Mars is the ruler of Capricorn by exaltation. So he's got this 10th house. So it looks, now remember, so this is something I want to talk about with the 10th house. The 10th house isn't just career, even though indeed you're going to school for your career. It also tends to be what is publicly known about the person, the works for which you are known. What is it that publicly everybody knows about you? So if you're the town slut, you should have Venus in the 10th house, or Mars, right? Or Mars-Venus conjunction in the 10th house. It might, Venus in the 10th house might not mean that you're going to be an artist or a singer or a musician. It might just mean that you're a really publicly well-known slut. And so same thing here. The ruler of the 9th is in the 10th. Publicly, you are known for going to school now. And so
yeah,
now
I am. Yeah. Like a lot of my friends, everybody, they just know that I restarted my college this year. Yeah.
Okay, so that's my point, is that's how that ends up working often with these particular things. So we've got Jupiter is still ruling the 9th house, and he's in the 10th. Right, so he's the distributor of the year, and then Mercury is right on the cusp of the 10th as well. So yes, congratulations, Layla. Lily says congratulations, Layla, and yes, it is. It's really fucking awesome. So that's really cool. Okay, let's move on. So now I think you're getting an idea of how powerful a lot of the stuff that we're doing here, wrong thing. Kind of is when we look at it in this way. When we use, like I said, I often find these solar returns, people are just putting up a solar return and it doesn't make any, it's like, it's not really enough. Oh wait, that's the wrong person, sorry. Layla, I want Lily. Is that the new one? Is that the natal? No, okay, let's get the natal. Because I know Lily put the natal up. Lily, natal. Okay, well, we've got the solar up now too. Got it, Lily, thank you. Okay. Oh, she even gave me an Alcabitious chart. Thank you. Very sweet. All right. So, Lily likes whole sign. I think a bunch of you do here, don't you? I mean, I like it too. I just like both. I like both.
I just associate it with traditional astrology. That's all.
Oh, really? But you know,
or Hellenistic, maybe.
Yeah, Hellenistic.
Maybe not less than, yeah.
Yeah, Benatti used Alcabitious. But yes, definitely Hellenistic. You're right. Okay, so what are we looking for? Oh, so she's turning 30, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 32. Oh, all right. Turning 32, okay. Or 31, rather. Sorry, don't rush you. I don't want to rush you. Okay, so she's still 30, though, right? So she hasn't gotten to 31 yet. So that'll be 24, 25, 26, 27. Oh, ho, ho. 20, wait, we got to do it 30 at a time. Remember, this is a perfect chart. This is exactly what I was talking about. This is the perfect chart for what I was talking about, where your chart can be jacked as fuck, but you still have time. And so this is where the what do they call it? The even signs, or not the whole signs, but what do they call it? The equal houses could be of some use. So Cancer 24, 25 Leo, 26 Virgo, 27 Libra, 28, 29, 30 Capricorn. She's actually here, right? Because her birthday isn't until July. And so now I'm going to do something that we didn't get to yet, but that we can. Because here's the thing: if you don't want to do a solar return, if you don't want to look at transits, I hate transits personally. I do not like transits. I don't know what it is. I just never really enjoyed working with them or using them. And I like planetary periods and all this other stuff, but I don't like transits. But if you don't want to use transits, you don't want to use the solar return, you can pinpoint with just the profection. So let's say Lily wants to know, what's my health going to be like this year? So 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. 30 brings her to Capricorn and to Saturn. Then she says, well, I said, well, ooh, Saturn's there and he's retrograde. There might be something with your niece this year. And she goes, well, when would that happen? And I say, well, it could be, well, it could actually be around your birthday, right? Because this would be July of 2021. But let's say it was not that, and I wanted to find out like when it was going to, let's say it showed that there was going to be some problem and the moon was the issue that it showed. And I started with this and I said, okay, so that's July. Here's August, September, October, November, December, January of 2020, of 2021 or 2022 is when that would happen. So you can actually do it by month as well. So she herself is actually in still a one for her 30th year, because she's not going to be 30 until July. When she's 30, she'll be in the Aquarius year. So if she shows the return, if she shows me a solar return for 2021, then it'll still be the same planet, won't it? It'll still be, what did you give me? Ow. She recently started running and busted her knee. A bit better. How. See, so that's what I'm saying. Because remember, the ascendant is health. The sixth house is infirmities, but the ascendant is health. And so it's only because I saw the retrograde that I thought, you know what? This Saturn's in relatively good shape, but the retrograde, it could do something a little bit askew and fuck up its knee. That's why I said that. However, now, okay, so we know that for 30 or for 31, whatever the solar return is going to be, we know that Lily is going to have Saturn as the ruler of the year. So now the distributor was Jupiter, if I'm not mistaken, and Jupiter is here. So Jupiter is combusted by the sun in Cancer, exalted and combusted. So that has an implication in and of itself. This exalted combustion will have an implication on sixth house issues. Okay, so she was just talking about how something happened with her knee. So we now come here, we look for Capricorn or Aquarius. So it's 2021. Okay, so we look for Aquarius, and their Saturn is in Aquarius. This should actually be a good year for her body. So what we might have needed to do was look for the one for 2020, right? And to see what was going on with Saturn last year, because that would have said something a little bit different. Maybe that would have been at the end of Sagittarius or the beginning of Capricorn and would have shown some different issues around the knee. But this one for 2021, it looks like, hey, that should be a pretty good year as far as health is concerned. Now, she could also find herself buried under something so that she can't really move as much as she wants to, because eighth house is the idle place and Saturn is already slow and idle. Or not idle, but slow and in stop motion. So there could be a feeling of stop motion to the year. Remember, she's got 2 months for this to come up. So she may not be feeling this yet. So that's the first thing. Jupiter, where is he? Look, and he's not far away. He's at the beginning of Pisces. Oh, that's right. That was this Venus Pisces thing. That was this Venus Jupiter opposition thing that we were just looking at. And now Venus she is the ruler of the fifth house. Saturn is the ruler of the seventh here. So there could be some issues around relationships, or like a relationship that's stop and go, or that it doesn't necessarily happen, but we're hoping it will happen. Cancer on the ascendant brings us back to the original ascendant as well with Mercury. So there's stuff around physical health. There's stuff around partnership and or relationships. And that's the main thing that I'm going to say around this chart. And then there's stuff around work, right? We talked around work or around the mother. There's stuff around the mother in this year. Okay, let's get to Maria. Oh shit, I always do that. Single as a Pringle. The way Toxic X is a poem. Well, I didn't say it had to be the Toxic X. I thought it might be, someone else that's not someone new. Okay, where's Maria? The thing is, even though it may point to it, it's kind of weak. It's not necessarily particularly. There's the natal, and here's the solar return. Okay. So she's turning what, 43-ish maybe? Yeah. Or she will be 43 at the end of this year. So what we're going to do is look at 2020, 42. Okay. So this is 24, 36, 48, right? 48, 47, 46, 45, 44, 43, 42. So 42 brings us to the 7th house. And that brings us then also to Mars. And there he is exalted in Capricorn. So this also says, is this a relationship year or a year that focuses on my marriage or focuses on my business partnerships? Or if it could be a business partnership of some sort, or contentions or lawsuits, because Mars is contentions. But either way, her position is quite strong as per the natal chart. Which planet was your distributor? Oh, it was Mercury, wasn't it? Was it Mercury, Maria? I think it was. Will you remind me? It was Mercury. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. So Mercury's, Mercury's in Sagittarius there. What's going on here? Yeah, Mercury. Okay, beautiful. All right. So Mercury down here in Sagittarius in his detriment, but what is he ruling? He's ruling the 9th. So that's something to do with education. That would be, or spiritual subjects, healing. Notice it's Gemini, so that's reading. So notice here she is with me, learning how to read charts. I definitely find that if Mercury is ruler of the 9th, if he's in the 9th, on the cusp of the 9th, often you have interest in oracles and things like that, or but it can also be research and other types of academic research. But because the 9th also has that woo-woo kind of situation to it, it can often be interest in astrology. And so this could be a year, or this could be a time period when you're finding yourself more interested in things like oracles and astrology than before. Yes, Phil, I'm going through a spiritual awakening of sorts. Just finished grad school. Love that. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so see, that's how it should be going. That's how it should be working. So what do they say? How it started, how it's going. All right. So we know we're looking for Mars and we're looking for Mercury. Oh, you know what? I want to just do one thing. Oh, but we don't have that. Never mind. I'm not going to bother with that. Okay, Mars and Mercury. Mars and Mercury. Okay, first of all, the ascendant is Aquarius. What did we come to? We came to Aries, which puts Aries here in the 2nd house. That's interesting. So remember, that was our profected ascendant, was Aries. So that says that there's going to be issues around finances. And look, we also have the solar return moon in the 2nd. Now I haven't had a chance to really kind of get into the solar return moon, but remember the way that we've talked about the moon is super, super important. And so we always want to know what's going on with the moon. And then at another time, if we talk about lunar returns should use the degree of the moon in the solar return for the year. So a lot of people use lunar returns for their year, for their natal moon, but you should actually be using the lunar return for this moon, for the solar return moon for every year, right? Because that's what's happening to you in the now. And now here's the other thing I learned about lunar returns. You only read the planets that are in angles. Only the planets that are in angles are important. Now, I don't know if there's new technique that's come out that I don't know about, but this was when I started learning years ago with Rob Zoller. That's what he said, was that for the lunar returns, all you looked at was the angular planets. All right, so here we are. We're looking for Mars way up here in the ninth, right? She just finished grad school. She's probably either in some kind of job or looking for some kind of job. So we've got it going into this ninth, 10th, between this ninth, 10th area. It's in the sign of the 10th, but it's actually in the place of the ninth. And so we've got this ninth, 10th kind of correlation situation with it. So that makes perfect sense, still looking for a job. So that's kind of where that would be. So that's kind of one of the things that's going to, now remind you, December 13, 2021 is when this chart comes into effect. So she's looking for the job now. More than likely, that would probably point to finding something, hopefully by that time, right? Because that's what's going on here. So we've got the Mars has just moved away from the midheaven, but it's in the sign of the midheaven still, and it's within 8 degrees of the midheaven. So one of the things that I did read was that for cusps of angles, they would give as much as 8 degrees before. For the cusp of succeeding houses, they would give 5 degrees, and for the cusp of cadent houses, they would give 3 degrees. So something to think about. So it's within 8 degrees, so it could technically be considered part of the 10th house as well. So, but this 9th, 10th thing is what I want to look at it that way. It's really both, and it's going to feel like both. So what you may end up finding, and what you might want to be looking for in this particular time period is either like research jobs that are research jobs, so something that continues your connection with whatever your subject matter was, but not necessarily in the private sector, but maybe still in academia. Because since the Mars has both of those things connected, you might think about that. Sun in the 10th, Sun in the 10th with Mercury. So where's the Sun ruling? Sun rules the 7th in the 10th. So there's something about partnership. Well, didn't we say this already? There's something about partnership. There's something, and look at how elevated the Mars is. So, and the Mars is in a fire sign. So there might be some kind of contention. Now, who would it be with? We should be able to see it by whoever's in contact with Mars, but really nobody is in contact with Mars. Let's see what you just said. Okay, thanks, Layla. So good to see you. Yeah, definitely. We'll be, we've got at least another 3 of them coming. All right, but you can see that's how you would go around about doing what it is that you're doing. Also, remember, you would be looking for, and it's doubly Mars. Oh, here's an example of that. So one of the things he talked about is if you've got more than one of the significators is the same planet. So for instance, she's in a Ptolemaic age of man that's ruled by Mars, and she's in a year that's ruled by Mars. And Mars is the ruler of the 7th house. So there's something around the 7th house. What is the other house that Mars rules? The 2nd or the 11th? 2nd. Oh, didn't we already talk about that? That there was going to be some kind of money issue. 2nd. So it's maybe not the 2nd, 7th house and 11 relationships, but it's really actually the 2nd house and money that you need to be thinking about, especially because since the moon is there, the main concern is finances, and also the finances are fluctuating because the moon is the fluxes of up and down, right? Although this is a boon year, Jupiter right on the ascendant. This is a good year, and ruler of the 10th on the ascendant. So that's actually a good thing. So this should be a year of finding, but this is starting in December, right? Starting in November, December, this should be a year of finding that kind of that good job that you want, etc., and trying to get your financial situation together, which is going to show up. It's going to show up as up and down, if it's not already. Okay. So for my very last thing, I want to just give I've been doing everybody else's. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did. I'm sure I didn't actually. But I want to use my example chart for just a second, and then open it to questions. So while I find the example chart, you all go ahead and ask any questions that you might have. I know that it's a lot of material that we just kind of. Okay, interestingly. Oh, good. So it had been, Maria. Thank you. Okay. So that's how specific you can get, you guys. You really can get that specific around a lot of these things. Okay. So this is Luciano Pavarotti's natal chart. And one of the things, so Luciano Pavarotti, I like to use him because he went from being just an opera singer to one of the most famous people in the world. And that doesn't happen all the time. Well, it does. It happened earlier. It could happen much more frequently. Like a guy named Enrico Caruso was one of the most famous people in the world back in the teens, the zeros, teens, and early. He died in 1920. But it's not really super common for an opera singer to become a humongous crossover star that all kinds of people know about. And Luciano Pavarotti did that. And so I'm kind of that's cool to me. And so one of the things that I wanted to look at is I wanted to look at the year that Luciano Pavarotti becomes the king of the high seas. So in the 1971-72 season, he and Joan Sutherland did this run of this opera called Fil de Régiment and La Fille de Régiment. And in it, there's this aria where the tenor has to sing these high Cs, 9 high Cs, one after the other. And that he was so celebrated for that during this season that he became an operatic superstar. He became the king and became known as the king of the high Cs. As a matter of fact, like the year later, an album came out that was called Luciano Pavarotti, King of the High Seas. And from that day, so from that time in 1972, it's February of 1972. So from February of 1972, the trajectory of fame just goes higher and higher and higher. But this is the trajectory that turned him into an operatic superstar. And so that's what we're going to look at, when he turns 36. So he turns 36, and here we are with 24, 0, 12, 24, 36. So he turns 36 October of 71, right? We're talking about February of 1972. So that makes the sun the Lord of the year. His distributor is Mars. We were already looking at that. His distributor is Mars. And so the sun is in Libra, which makes sense for music. It's also in a human sign, which is Libra, which is also a sign of attractive voice. He was not quite 31, so he was still in this sun period for his Ptolemaic age of man. So we're going to be really interested in what's going on with the sun, but we're also going to be really interested in what's going on with Mars. So we come here to the solar return, and Capricorn is rising, and here's the sun. Of course, it's a solar return, so of course the sun is going to go back to its original position. But now we have the sun on top of the part of fortune, with the ruler of the part of fortune elevated in the highest part of the chart. The other thing is that if we go back here for a second, I'm going to go back to we go back to the natal chart. One of the things that you can also do is you can perfect the part of fortune, and should. So if we perfect the part of fortune, we would obviously come to Saturn. Here is Saturn opposing this Jupiter. So we've got Jupiter opposing the Saturn. Jupiter is ruling the 11th, and the 11th is future hopes and wishes. But where was that? Oh, but the best thing was, this trine between Mars and the sun. And how this sun thing elevates him. Mercury, Venus, the ruler of the part of fortune, Venus and all of that on top of the part of fortune. This is a year of being elevated. Also look at how the moon is trining from its own sign of Cancer. The sun is actually trining the Mars. The next application it's going to make is to the Mars. If you remember, the perfection of the part of fortune came to itself at 17 degrees or 18 degrees of Aquarius, right? Or 22 degrees of Aquarius. 24 degrees of Aquarius. There the Mars is right there. There the distributor is right on the Aquarius. So we've got the ruler of the year on the part of fortune. We've got the profected. We've got the ruler, the distributor on the profected part of fortune. So that's what I'm talking about. But it's when we are able to kind of put, and then we've got Jupiter in his own sign in the 11th. So that's kind of my point. We've got all of these really excellent, this was a really excellent year for, I don't want to say necessarily for fame. Yeah, for fame, for prominence, for being promoted, for being pushed forward, for being pushed into the spotlight. This is a year of being pushed into the spotlight. And definitely that is what happened. I mean, altogether, there was always a trajectory for Luciano Pavarotti of doing really, really well. But like I said, there's being at the top of your field, and then there's being a superstar, right? And not everybody makes it to superstar status. Okay, so I'm basically kind of finished with my presentation. If you have other questions, etc., ask away. Also, I know what I wanted to ask. If you have requests for the next 3 weeks of what to do, put it on in here. And you don't have to put it in the chat. You can, there's only 4 of us here. You can open up and say whatever. Layla, do you have any ideas of what you'd like to see for the next 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about this. We've done annual perfections, we've done solar returns. What's your opinion about transits?
I was gonna, mostly I don't work with transits that much because I don't really like them, but we can certainly work with transits. I mean, transits usually that includes the outer planets, and that's totally fine with me. If you want to look at we could do the outers, we could do transits with the outers if you want to do that.
No, like I want to know what traditional astrology thinks of it, because I haven't read many material regarding that. Everything in traditional astrology is about zodiacal releasing or annual perfections. I never see it from a transit point of view.
Yeah, it wasn't really, I mean, it was used, but remember, that's a really good question. And I think that my answer will take into account something that maybe we haven't thought about. Think about the extent to which at this period, the period that we're looking at, other branches of astrology were extremely prevalent. Electional astrology was prevalent. Horary astrology was prevalent.
Yeah.
Mundane astrology was prevalent. What are you doing when you're doing a horary chart? You're looking at the transit of the day.
Yeah.
What are you doing when you look at the electional chart? You're looking at transits. So I think that there wasn't a relationship. This is kind of my point about kind of modern natal astrology, is that since modern natal doesn't really know how to do a lot of things, it doesn't do horary. It doesn't really do electional. So it really relies on transits. But when you do horary, when you do electional, when you do mundane, you don't really need, you know what's going. I mean, the transit, you might have a transit to something else, but what's going on with my Fredaria? We didn't even get to Fredaria today. What's going on with Fredaria? What's going on with my primary directions? They were able to get amazing things with primary directions. I think, and it's similar with Jyotish as well. I think that they found transits to be the least effective and the least accurate. That's my conjecture. That's my conjecture. I'm purely conjecturing. I think because we know how the Indians feel about the Dasha Bhukti system, and how well and how well you can. I mean, one of the last times I was in India, I looked at this guy's Dasha Bhukti Dasha system, and I said, "Oh, you should be trying to have children right now, and it shouldn't be working." And that was exactly what was going on. So
okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I get it.
The Vedic astrologers use it. They call it Gochara, right? But Gochara ain't shit. But Gochara ain't shit. Nobody gives a fuck about Gochara. Everybody is using Dasha and Bhukti, and if they're not using the Vimshottari Dasha, they're using the Narayana Dasha. There's all those different Dasha systems, right? So
Right.
if they thought that transits made the most sense, they'd use them. Because the Indians ain't fucking around. They don't fuck around. If it's the most accurate thing, they're gonna fucking use it. And I mean, it's serious.
They do.
I spent too much fucking time there. You know what I mean? It's like they don't play around. They don't play around with that.
Yeah. It came to my mind because I think I came upon this lecture by Chris Brennan, and it was about birth time rectification. And it's a whole lecture where he tells, these techniques, and he's basically working around the natal chart. But towards the end of the lecture, he mentions that in order to, get to the more accurate time, you need to use zodiacal releasing and annual perfections. And he does not go into transits as well. And that really, and that is what really prompted this question in my head. Like, why is he not thinking about transit? Because all I see is transit. A lot of the people, they just they use transits, but he mentioned that you should use annual perfections or zodiacal releasing even to get the time really accurate, like as accurate as you can get. He does not mention transits. Like, he briefly mentioned it, not by a lot.
I'm getting to the point where I really feel like, especially Jupiter, like Jupiter transit, like I find like a Jupiter transit, people are like, oh, my Jupiter return's coming. And I don't.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like the Twitter is these days, Jupiter is entering into Pisces and yada, yada, yada.
Well, I mean, even if they're turning 24 and their Jupiter's coming back to its original position.
Yeah.
I still don't find it to be all that potent. I had a very potent Mars retrograde. But it was going to my moon and to my IC. So the thing that I think is this: retrogrades are strongest. Retrogrades are the strongest as far as transits are concerned. Not so if it's direct, whatever. But if it goes retrograde over something important, that's super strong. And if it's conjuncting, like such and such is squaring my blah blah blah, but whatever. But if it's opposing or conjuncting, then I'm all over it. But if it's just trining or squaring or sextiling or something like that, who knows? I would prefer to use zodiacal releasing like Chris. I prefer to use that or perfections or solar returns like we're using here. Look at how much detail we're able to get to go into with that. We can do it.
We can see the entire year in one chart. Yeah, we don't need to look at transits. We don't need to track the transits throughout the year.
I mean, even Abu Mashar says to look at the transits of the planets in the return. Yeah. So we are looking at them. We do. It's not like we're not
as obsessively.
Yeah. Or here's the thing. Oh, actually, here's an even better thing. One of the things that I did on that very first reading was I wrote out and it was Mercury, so I had to do it quite a bit, but I wrote out all of the transits that were happening to the natal Mercury. That was the ruler of the year for the person.
Right.
And and so Mercury, as you know, goes in and out in combustion all the time. And so included in it was when Mercury entered combustion, when Mercury went Casimir, when Mercury left combustion, all of that stuff. But what I'm finding, because remember what I just said, is that not all things are important at all times. And so what Mashar is saying is that when that planet becomes the Lord of the year, then watch the transits. Get it?
Right. Yeah.
Then watch the transits.
Get it.
Right?
Yeah.
So
because then everything is happening at once, right? At one point, Pluto is, conjuncting your sun, but at the other point, Jupiter is doing something favorable for you, and then it just does not make sense.
Exactly. So if you think about those, like we only looked at maybe 3 things. We looked at the age of man, we looked at the perfected ascendant, and then we looked at the distributor. Those are the only three things that we really kind of looked at. Those would be the things that I look at transits to.
Yeah. Right.
So instead of all this willy-nilly, my sun is getting the blah, 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 or my bill, it's like, wait, well, who's the Lord of the year? Oh, well, that's the one you want to watch. That's the one you want to watch, right? Who's the distributor? Oh, okay, well, that's the one. Who's the whatever, that's what I think when it gets to it. Obviously, the Lord of the Ascendant and the Moon, natal or solar return you want to look at.
Yeah, because that is also the idea behind the triplicity rulers, right? Like the triplicity rulers, they distribute the chart in 3 parts. So not all parts of the chart are activated at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not all parts of the chart are activated. So this gives us everything that we've been doing gives us it gives us stuff to research and look into. It gives us stuff to look into, right? Because this might be the missing piece. This might be why nothing happened to me when my Jupiter return happened. It's because Jupiter wasn't ruler of the year.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be because of that. And because that's basically what he's implying. He's implying that a planet that's not, that not every planet is going to be activated by every transit. And so if there's a reason for that planet to be activated by that transit, and so I guess the planets to be thinking about are the planet that rules the Fradaria, which I guess we should maybe talk about. There's not a lot to talk about. I should have included it in this, but we got involved with other stuff. So
we can include it in another one of the workshops along with some other thing.
We can start with that and go into some other. At this point, we're in hodgepodge. I've kind of covered all the important things. So there's the planet that owns the Fradaria, the planet that owns the year, the planet that owns the distribution, and the planet that owns the Ptolemaic age. Those 4 planets would be the important planets to watch for transits, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I see on Reddit a lot of times that people, they post their natal chart with their transits chart, and then I'm like, there's so many things happening. Like I would open Robert Hand's book, Planet in Transit, whenever somebody would post this chart, and I'd see people responding to it, and I'd open Robert Hand's Planet in Transit, and I see one thing, and then I also see another thing, so I'm like, there's just too much stuff happening. How are you just picking one thing and leaving the other? It does not make sense at all. Like not every Pluto transit, for example, I posted this question a while ago on Reddit. And I asked this question, like, Pluto is an outer planet, and everybody's like, oh my God, Pluto is going to do this. Pluto is going to conjunct my sun. Pluto is going to conjunct my Jupiter, and this and that, and this is going to happen. And I posted that question. I'm like, okay, Saturn is also kind of a generational planet, because for people who were born in 2.5 years, everybody's going to have Saturn in Aquarius. For example, people who were born in 19 to 92. So in 1 to 2 years, Pluto is going to conjunct Saturn for every one of those people. So it's like as an entire subsection of a generation is gonna face the Pluto-Saturn conjunction, and is everything gonna go to chaos? It's
right.
It does not make sense. Yeah.
So this might be the key once again to why certain transits don't show up. I mean, exactly. I never got thought about it until I read this book. I was up until I read this book, I always thought, okay, well, either transits don't work or they do work. Or like I said, I guess underneath my thinking was always that transits were the least interesting and accurate.
Yeah.
Not that they weren't accurate at all, but that they were, they weren't the most fun and interesting things to use. Like, ooh, planetary periods are cool, and zodiacal releasing is really cool. And zodiacal releasing is accurate as fuck. So, I mean, why would I want to screw around with transits when I know I could do that? And so with the Profections, when I was able to predict a woman's pregnancy to a month with Profections, so it's like, why would I want to use a transit?
Yeah.
And then, also the nice thing about Profections were you turn the chart into a game board, because they would do the counting with you, and then so it would become this kind of interactive, kind of the chart kind of expands into this other thing. And all of a sudden, so then all of a sudden you're able to do all this predicting with just this one thing in your hand. And so there's something kind of to that, or something about that feeling. And I remember experiencing my clients when it would move to the Profection time, and how fun it was for them and how engrossing it was
Yeah.
watching me move around, going with me and counting with me around it. So I really think, everybody has to find the thing in astrology that they're the bone. Everybody has to find the bone that they're chasing, or the tail, or the tail light, or the back of the car that they're chasing.
Yeah.
And so this might be your thing, but like somebody needs to chase this car about transits, and whether or not, when transits are coming up, and whether or not they're real. Or, I mean, obviously they're real. I mean, stuff has happened to me when transits were happening, so they're real. But why and when and how, and is there something
Yeah,
systematic?
like why one thing happened and not the other thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maria and Lily, do you have any ideas for something you'd like me to do next week? Or, I mean, for the next 3 weeks? Or I was going to actually look at fertility. I thought I might do more than one thing next week. Of like, we'd look at the 5th house, maybe look at the 11th, or, what do you think?
I would love to do
fertility-
fertility. I think it's so interesting, but also,
I was
I'm
gonna say that
like
too.
heavily into the 6th house. It makes so much sense to me. I've been like focusing on 6th house things when reading charts. Although lately I haven't been doing anything, as you aptly said. Work has been like way too much for me lately. So, but yeah, I would love to learn about fertility.
6th house of fertility. Okay, Maria, I'm sorry, you were going to start.
Oh, yeah, no, I was saying I'm also interested in fertility, only because I've not had children and unable to. So so that would be kind of a cool thing, I guess, to see in my own chart. Like, what do you look at to figure that out? Like.
Yeah. Okay, well, you know what? Next week, why don't we do this? Let's combine 5th and 6th house next week. So we'll look at 5th house and 6th house. So we'll look at fertility. We'll look at like health, illness, fertility, infertility, all of that type of stuff.
Great idea.
And that way we can get a nice look at it. And we can, we'll just go through the techniques like we have with everything. Have you all been, like, those of you who are looking at charts, etc., have you been feeling like what we're doing here has been helping you to kind of enter chart more easily?
Oh yeah, a lot. Like I'm seeing charts completely different now from what I used to. Yeah.
Great. I mean, I know we're all at different places. So, but this should dispel the confusion for how to look at things.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing, in my opinion, around this particular series. Is at least at this point you should know how to approach it. You should know what to be looking for, how to be looking at it, and from there you can figure it out.
Yeah.
All right.
One more thing that we can do for future workshops, like not the next one because we're doing the 5th and 6th house, but there's one thing that I was thinking about this afternoon, and it was about the 7th house. And something that really, I don't know if it's me only, but I see people see the 7th house only in the context of relationship and not much as the psychology and versus the descendant. I don't see discussion around that.
Well, okay, so you're right. So even when we did
it's only romantic relationship. Yeah, it does not really. Okay, like people talk about how your ascendant is your outer self, but nobody talks as much about descendant. They don't talk about beyond relationships, about how 7th house is really works out other than that area.
That's an interesting thing to look at. I mean, what would be cool would be to look at the entire, like all of the things that the 7th house, like looking at the 7th house almost from a horror perspective. And so because, the 7th house includes so many things, it's, basically you would look at the 7th house. The 7th house is the umbrella for figuring out who stole from your house.
Yeah.
Finding thievery and robbers and that kind of thing.
Exactly,
Besiegement of castles. War and besiegement of castles. So yeah, that's a great idea. So we'll do 5, 6 next week, and we'll do 7 the week after. And then I definitely want to do the 11th house and hopes and dreams, and looking at the 11th house for hopes and dreams. And that might be one of the last. Oh, we've got to do life expectancy. Okay, so 8th house and life expectancy. Okay, so those will be the next few weeks then. Next week will be 5 and 6. Then we'll look at, then we'll kind of pick apart the 7th house fully. And then we'll look at the 11th house. And then we'll look at the 8th house. And that will be the last one.
Yeah.
Can you see cause of death?
Yes, you can. So I think I told you about this. So probably my greatest moment, it was in the same reading as where I told this one. I guess my greatest astrological win was with this one client who was a friend. She was a friend, and she was skeptical about coming to see me because, oh, but you already know me. You'll have friends that'll say that. Oh, people say you're a good astrologer and everything. I wanted to get a reading with you, but you already know me. I'm like, well, and so I would do certain things with people. Like once, one friend that came to me, I said, well, you know what? I've never actually met your dog. And he had 2 different times for a chart. And so I had both charts. And I said, so I'm going to use these 2 charts to describe your dog. And you tell me which one is correct. And so one of the charts turned out to be correct. But the best moment that I ever had, and that was a cool thing. And he was also skeptical about astrology generally. And I remember we went to this party much later, and some friend of his came up to me, and he goes, "You're the astrology guy, right?" I'm like, he goes, "I always thought that was bullshit, but Michael just told me about the reading he had with you, where you described his dog." I'm like, but okay, so with this other, her name was Michelle. With Michelle, Michelle came, and I usually I do what I kind of do with you guys, where I ask a question like, oh, now is there a blah blah blah? Like I usually would ask the questions of like, this is what the chart is saying to me, but I could be full of it. So at this particular point in my asking, that's usually how it would start, was I would ask these very specific questions. And so the first question was, do you have a foreign or unusual parents? And her parents were foreign and blind. And then the questions just kept getting better and better. And I kept, right? And so finally, the question that I had wanted to ask the entire time, which was, do you have a brother who's dead? And she said, yes, I do. And I said, okay, did he die of something to do with his brain? She's like, yes, he had a brain disease.
Oh my God.
So yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Cool.
It's a long-
So in the last webinar, we'll all just go around figuring out how we're gonna die. I think that's gonna be really fun. No, I'm just joking.
Here, let me say it this way. The chart was very specific about the brother's death. It wasn't specific about hers. It wasn't specific about her parents' death. It was specific about her brother's death. It very, very specifically pointed to the death of a brother. And not all charts point specifically to things, right? Which we were just talking, Layla, we were just talking about that, right? Not all charts, right? The things aren't activated at the same time. The specificity of things isn't always indicated. It's us who either figures it out or finds it. So I don't think it's so easy to know how we're going to die and when. I know it's easy to do these calculations. What I think instead to do is this. Think of it as an intellectual exercise that has no bearing. It either works or it doesn't work. We don't know. We don't care. Right? That's the main reason I have. We want to know how to do it because it's a technique. But other than that, who cares? Right? We don't really care if it's, we're not going to use it to whatever. I'm not going to use it to figure out whatever. That was I wouldn't say a parlor trick, but that was a great moment of astrology that I was able to do. But if I had seen that about her, I wouldn't have said it.
Yeah.
Right? If I had seen that matter of fact, I did have a chart of another guy that I knew that he wasn't going to live to see 50. I never said it, and I still don't know if I was right. So, So I don't think, I mean, there are ethical aspects to the whole idea of death, of predicting death, but it's possible. We can do it. We can do it. We can say how. We can say how. In some cases, we can say when or within a certain period. But yeah, it's doable.
It would be cool to look at people who have already died, like we know the cause of death, and see if we can, point that.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, that's what we will do. We'll look at some. As a matter of fact, Judy Garland would be a great one because she died at 47, right?
Yeah.
So that would be good. So some of these early deaths, maybe get James Dean or Marilyn Monroe in there. People who
I think
did.
Kurt Cobain is also a good. I think Kurt Cobain is also a good example of that because he died at 27. He was quite young and quite famous at the time.
Who is that? Who?
Kurt Cobain, the guitarist of Nirvana.
Yeah, Kurt Cobain, River Phoenix. There's a bunch of these really young people that died. So yeah, it'd be good to look at those. Right. So remember, as I always say, astrology can do a lot. The weakest link in astrology is the astrologer. Often when a person says that astrology can't do something, what they're really saying is, I can't do it with astrology. That's really what's going on. Most likely when somebody, like you get on Reddit and you see somebody says, well, astrology can't really do that. No, they just don't know how to do it with astrology. Astrology can do it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, guys, just to revise everything, you mentioned, just to revise the today's class, you mentioned that when we are looking at the annual profections and solar return, we look at the Lord of the Ascendant, right? And then we look at the distributor. And then if we are looking at a particular area, then we look at the profected ascendant and also the planets inside those three houses.
Okay, thank you. Because there's something else I wanted to bring up around that. Okay, so the first thing you're doing is you're looking at the natal chart to find the natal condition of the planet that represents the age of man that you're in. You're looking at the natal chart to find the perfected ascendant, to perfect the ascendant, to find the Lord of the year. Then you're going to look to the solar return for both of those planets. So you're going to look in both places for the condition of those planets. Same thing with the distributor. You're going to be looking for the distributor in the natal chart, and then you're going to be looking for the condition of the distributor in the solar return. Here's what I wanted to mention that I didn't, is that the ruler of the solar return ascendant and the ruler of the profected ascendant act as partners for the year.
The ruler of the ascendant and ruler of the solar return ascendant.
Perfected ascendant. So the Lord of the year and the ruler of the solar return ascendant are partners for the year.
Okay. So if somebody is in their fifth house perfection year, then the Lord of the fifth and the Lord of the ascendant of the solar return, these two are the partners. Okay.
Now, we use the term partner also when we talk about the distributor, right? But that's the planet that's either in the term or aspecting the term. But we'll come back to that. That one was a little bit dicey. I could feel that was dicey. So we'll come back. We need to come back to this material because, like I said, we didn't get to the Fredaria. I could feel that the stuff around the term, the distributing the term, was a little bit dicey, and we could learn a little bit more about figuring that partnership thing out with that. So that might be something we might use some of the extra time in the next few weeks, if we have it, to look at those things. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. And once again,
thank you so much. This has been great.
Oh, wonderful. And once again, the only payment that you need to give me is to get out there and recommend me to other people. If somebody says, fine, I'm looking for an astrologer, I'm looking for a course, just recommend me. That'd be perfect. Okay?
Yeah.
Have a great day. Have a great day, you
Bye.
ladies. I will send you the link soon. Bye-bye.